For the pledge to the flag. And to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Special things going on here tonight. Chief Madison Winchester, if you'd like to take over.
It's a good evening. We do have something special tonight. Tonight, I'd like to recognize a young man. I shouldn't say I would, but the department would like to recognize this young man who did something exceptional and really something very selfless. And I'd like to call or introduce you to Alexander Morales. If you want to come up here, it's Alexander. You can clap. Go ahead. You can see after I tell you what he did, you'll be clapping even harder. Everyone knows how difficult at times being a police officer can be, and but it's something that we all signed up to do, and we took the oath to protect and to serve. And Alexander Morales is an exceptional young man in that he clearly does not do this for a living. He never took an oath to protect anyone, but not so long ago on January 30th of this year, he took action when he observed something that he knew was wrong, inappropriate, and protected an individual who he did not know who she was. And I just want to read to you, this came to my attention through our officers who responded to the scene of this incident and came forward and said, we really have to do something for this young man. He did such a great thing and really didn't take his own safety into account and just jumped into action, which is indicative of, a great police officer. So maybe someday you can be coming back here and I can shake your hand and you can become a police officer. So on January 30th of 2025, Alexander Morales intervened during an in-progress assault of a young woman at the Giant Food Store located at 600 East Lancaster Avenue, Shillington, PA. Without regard for his personal safety, he stopped a male aggressor from touching the victim inappropriately by potentially putting himself in harm's way to pull the suspect off of the victim. This courageous act halted the assaultive actions of the aggressor, who was then apprehended by officers arriving on scene. For this selflessness, in particular act of heroism, Alexander Morales is hereby recognized by the Cumru Township Police Department and being provided this Civilian Service Award due to his brave actions. Alexander, we had to actually stop him because he was ready to go about his day. Just another day, superhero act done. We had to stop him and say, "Hey, no, this is more. You did such a great thing. So congratulations. We appreciate that." And we always hear these stories that lift your spirit of humanity, and this is one of those things that just makes you, gives you goosebumps when you think about what you did. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Move on to the ambulance service. Do you have anything for the ambulance service?
I just wanted to let the board know you have information on your shared drive. I did ask the chief, for his reflections on the ambulance chief, not fire chief, on the response time, and that is reflective of the weather we've been having, ice and snow, which I'm sure you'll hear more about later. And also, they provided mutual aid, to other entities at further locations. So that is, some explanation about the response time. If you have any further questions, please let me know and I will get answers for you.
Okay, hearing no questions, moving on. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Badger,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes. Tax collector.
As the board may know, the tax bill, the real estate tax bills have not gone out for 2025 yet. So there's not a whole lot of action, going on here. I will point out, when it says on item number A1, balance collectible to end of the month, all of a sudden it says 0. That's because those accounts got sent to tax claim. And that is a normal function for beginning of January. Per capita bills they're low because the July per capita bills have not gone out yet. You're only seeing a portion reflected here, the ones that went out in November.
Public comment, it's true. Yeah, it looks like, no one has signed up for a public comment, except Ben, have you, decided? No? So there's no further public comment? Wow, that was great. Moving on to the departments. Right together, the police department with Madison Winchester.
Thank you. You all should have my monthly report on your tablets. If there's any questions. There's continues to be very busy, a lot of calls that are coming in. I do share emails with G, and I shared one today in regards to an officer who was recognized by an individual for a routine call, if you will, that the individual got a hold of us, emailed, sent a card in, and said that how pleased that she was that the officer helped her. And I will brag about them for a little bit. That the one you got today was only one of two. Some of the emails I don't send out. We just congratulate the officers, but they do such a good job on a day in, day out basis. And they're recognized often from members of the public, which is really kind of awesome to be honest with you. The item B on my agenda is the resignation letter. I asked the board to consider accepting the resignation of Officer Bethany Ruas effective January 24th, 2025. She came to a very difficult decision, and I believe that resignation letter is on your tablets, that she decided that law enforcement was just not a profession that she had a passion for. The way she described it to me, it made a lot of sense. It was very difficult, I know, for her to come to that because she really wanted to love being a police officer. And in the police academy, you're told over and over again that it's not just a job. If you don't love it, it's going to be very difficult for you. And that kind of weighed heavy on her because she wasn't having the feelings that she thought she should be having with this job. And I say specifically with this job, meaning not Cumru Township. She made it very clear that she just no longer felt that she could have a career in law enforcement. So she resigned. So I asked the board to consider making a motion and accepting her resignation effective January 24th.
So moved. I'll second.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Backdoor,
Yes.
Mr. Janelle.
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Thank you. I will be getting with liaisons in the very near future to discuss the creation of a civil service list for hiring, not saying we are gonna hire, but just having that list, the current list has expired. And we always want to have a list for any unexpected resignations or departures like this. So rest assured to the rest of the board that I will be talking with liaisons and planning for the future. Thank you.
Just to add on that, Madison, personal things that happened to me. I had 2 fraud events. I know Gene had a fraud call last night. So fraud is on the up and up. Twice I got into my checking account. One time was through a ATM machine down in Sheets. And I did call the police. The detective went down and saw one of those cards. And so there was at least 10 people, different institutions where their money was, hacked into. So just everybody for the public to be aware that fraud is really evident right now. It seems like more now than Christmas.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And just to kind of expand on that, I get text messages on my phone on a regular basis. And it's usually from, I think the most recent one was not my Netflix account, but it was from the US Postal Service that there's a package that I have that it's so ridiculous. If you put a little bit of thought into it, you know that the post office doesn't have my cell phone number, so even I'm getting these constant barrages of emails and now texts and phone calls. So the one thing I would recommend is any email you do get, if you place that cursor for your mouse, the little arrow over the actual name or the sender, it'll show you the email address that it's coming from. And most times, like for example, if you get an email from PayPal, I just got one today. I don't even have PayPal, but I got it from PayPal. But if you put that cursor over that, it'll show you the email address, and it's never PayPal. It's from somewhere in, across the country. So take the time to do that if you ever wonder if this is a legitimate, thing. And 99.9% of the time, it's not legitimate. And you can always call us if there's ever a question of the legitimacy of a phone call you receive, a text you receive, or an email you receive. Please get a hold of us and we can, if anything, reassure you that it's fraudulent, it's a scam, and that can put your mind at ease at least, knowing that it's fraudulent. And I'm not gonna lie to you, the chances of making an arrest are somewhere between slim and none. But I think the peace of mind will go a long way, knowing that you can say this is fraudulent.
Thank you. On to the fire department with Chief Boone.
Good evening, Commissioners. First item is my monthly report, which you should have received. If you have any questions, I'd gladly take them on that monthly report. And it was quite a busy month, to say the least. And if not, I'll move on to item B and keep this moving. I'll do these in separate motions if that's okay. That way they're accounted for independently, so they're separately instead of all together.
So they could, Kelsey, could they adopt a motion to, authorize the payments as articulated in the table?
Yes, that's okay.
All right, that sounds better. I'm looking for a motion to consider pay applications for the following contractors. Bolton Incorporated, pay application number 8 for the amount of $506,244.18. HB Fraser, pay application number 7 for $13,319.37. Vision Mechanical, pay application number 6, $22,828.50. And Air Management, pay application number 4 for $208,440 for a grand total for the whole motion of $750,832.05.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mr. Badger.
Yes.
Mr. Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Thank you. Let us see, if you recall, last month I was talking about some different things in regards to land management. We did receive a letter from the Green Hills Preserve Natural Lands who, in regards to a prescribed fire, which I believe this was uploaded to your drive on your tablets in regards to doing some land control fires down in the Woods of William Penn forest down at borders us and Robinson Township. And they're talking about Gunhart Road. So I doubt we're even going to notice that this is going on, but this is sort of what I was talking about last month in regards to land management and burning off some unnecessary things that are on the ground in a controlled manner so we don't have wildfires later down the road. But this is one of those examples. And yes, it is happening, which is on the eastern side of the township, down the other side of 176. It's supposed to happen by the end of March. Weather conditions need to be perfect for them to do this. And obviously not like the last couple of days with 50-mile-an-hour winds. So that's more of an FYI. Like I said, we probably won't even know when they do it if they do it and conditions are right. And then letter D, asking for a motion for, unfortunately, the resignation of firefighter Seth Eschberger from the department effective 2/26/2025.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Badger.
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Any other questions? If not, we'll keep us moving. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And I move on to administration.
Good evening. The codes department report is fairly sparse because at this time of year, there are fewer permits. I did want to point out that we've had a joint effort between the fire department, the code department, and Great Valley Consultants with respect to inspections at the Sunset Townhouse apartment building. It is the tallest building in Cumru Township. It's 10 floors. There are 200 apartment units of mostly elderly and or handicapped individuals. And there's an issue with the elevators. I know that they've contacted the county, they meaning residents have contacted the county commissioners, Senator Fetterman's office. This has been an ongoing issue that is being addressed through codes, but I wanted to acknowledge that it's a multi-departmental problem that is being addressed. The next item under planning, I was just explaining to a couple of the commissioners during the break. There's a rule with the Berks County Recorder of Deeds that the signature block on a plan that has been approved and is being recorded, the signature block, the dates in the block cannot be any older than 90 days. That's why occasionally you will see on an agenda a reaffirmation of approval like you do now with the Greens Hill Business Park plan. That plan had already received final approval from the Board of Commissioners. Although of course I acknowledge that that was not a unanimous vote. Nonetheless, it received final approval. The plan has not yet been recorded because the developer is still getting together the escrow for the public improvements and the agreement for the public improvements. Since it is past the 90-day window, the reaffirmation of approval is on your agenda this evening.
The only thing I would say with regard to this, is repeating what I said the last time. We do not have to approve this. I understand the implications of not approving it, but I want to just clarify that it is not something that we have to do. That's why we have to affirm the approval. We, the executives of the township, we, the governing authority of the township, have to approve this for it to go forward. It's not something that we don't have the choice in doing. That's all I have to say.
I'll make a motion to reaffirm the approval.
I'll second.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
No.
Mr. Backdoor.
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
No.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
The next item under planning is the Conway Minor Subdivision. This is a property that already has 2 dwelling units on it, and which is pre-existing non-conforming. They are subdividing the 2 units such that it will be what it's supposed to be, 2 separate units. So this is actually taking a non-conformity and making it conforming. And there are 2 motions requested. One is to approve waivers to the subdivision and land development ordinance for the various studies. As you see here, there is no new construction proposed. When you're looking at this area, you will not know that anything happened. This is literally an administrative type of subdivision. So the planning commission recommended to grant waivers to the environmental impact assessment, community facilities impact assessment, utility impact assessment, and to not require curbs and sidewalk along Old Lancaster Pike. And there isn't any there anyway. So that is the motion recommended by the planning commission.
I'll make the motion to approve all the waivers.
Seconded.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Backdoor.
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
The next item is the planning commission also recommended granting final approval subject to any conditions that are outstanding in the review letter, and other than frankly paying fees and obtaining the appropriate signatures on the drawing, there are no outstanding conditions because there's no construction expected with this. So the planning commission is recommending final approval.
I'll make the motion to grant final approval.
Second.
Mr. Backdoor,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
The next item is a minor subdivision. This is, if everyone knows where the church is at the 5-way intersection in Gogersville, across from the Montessori School. The church has a piece of excess land that it is selling, and the Roos is the subdivider. This has received review from the planning commission. Right now, there is no construction proposed for the empty lot that is being created. And the planning commission is recommending waivers to the subdivision and land development ordinance, similar to those that I articulated for the previous plan. In this case, it's literally an empty piece of ground. They're recommending and waiver to the environmental impact assessment, community facilities impact assessment, the utility impact assessment. There is sanitary there. By the way, there is no public water. And to not require curbs or sidewalk along Vermont Road, I would point out Vermont Road is a state road.
So moved.
Mr. Backdoor,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rattle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to Bob with public comments.
Good evening, quick update on winter weather. We've obviously had some, the temperatures are extra cold these next few days. We've been out 11 different times this year with snow events, winter weather events. Our, in case you're wondering, our salt inventory is acceptable for right now. And they did cancel the storm that they had predicted for Wednesday, Thursday, so if they hold that forecast, I think we'll be in good shape. I did have a discussion with the American Rock Salt today. They did assure me that I will be getting the salt deliveries that we have in the pipeline, and that we will be able to order enough, order up to our 140% if we need to. Keep in mind, I've already entered us into the contract. It's a requirement by the Department of General Services for the 25-26 winter season. Those numbers have to be with them by, I think it's March 15th. So I have to guess what the weather is going to be a year ahead of time. So right now we're doing okay. And that's all I have to say about winter weather, unless someone has some questions.
Yeah, predicted we'll have anything left, balance or nothing?
We'll talk to you about that in April.
That new building you have is holding all that extra salt, though, pretty good.
We did build a new salt shed a few years ago, and that has helped greatly.
Because I've seen certain townships in this county running out.
It's important to have a big enough stockpile. When you have a stockpile, when there are glitches in the system, when things do slow down for deliveries, you can rely on your stockpile and not wait on the next delivery. That's something we used to have to deal with back earlier in my time here. But once we built the new public works building and we're able to have more salt storage, it's really eased things up for the speediness of deliveries. So.
The other thing I want to point out is that last winter was kind of a mild winter. We only had 2 or 3 events. The 2 winters prior to that were extremely mild. We had almost no winter weather. And I don't know if some municipal entity may have been lulled into not providing for as much salt. When you're dealing with this kind of issue, you're looking at many years ahead. It's the old adage about literally storing up for winter. Also, I have to thank the board for helping us build a bigger salt shed a few years ago. That was a really important project. Obviously, it's really important right now. One of the other problems, you may have seen an article about this. The Berks County Cooperative Purchasing Council has the same supplier as the state contract. And the state contract has higher precedence over the local contract. So that's and that was the same problem that occurred in 2014.
We piggyback on the state contract, not the purchasing council contract.
I just wanted to say, I think we maybe said this the last time, but I wanted to reiterate the commendation that the guys are doing, and please pass that along to the team. I think probably most of the folks in this room would agree that the team's done a fantastic job. Good for all the stuff we've done. Thank you.
Up next, we have application number 1 for payment for the Wyoming Creek stream bed restoration. for Phillips Excavating for $93,256.59.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bachelor,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell.
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Item number 3 is Cedar Top Road Project, application number 4 for $2,835.00.
Second.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bachelor.
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Item D, we were January 29th, we had a, January 28th. We had a sinkhole open up, in front of 9 Fairley in Montrose Manor. It was related to a water main break. I can't necessarily blame it on the water main break. I don't know whether it was the chicken or the egg, but regardless, it's a sinkhole area. Sinkhole opened up. We identified it actually with the sewer meters. We noticed a huge spike. The guys went out, found out where the water was really pouring in. We identified it as a water main break. Shillington came over, opened up the hole, and it was a hole a quarter the size of this room, and they hadn't even dug anything out at all, went in the sinkhole. So Shillington got in there, got their water main, we sealed up. We brought an outside excavator in the next day with a much bigger piece of machinery. We dug it out. We had a geologist from Atlas Engineering come up. We found the throat. Mike took care of putting flowable fill in to hopefully plug that thing up permanently. And then we put 200 tons of stone in. We need to let it settle for a few months, and in the summertime, we will restore the road and go from there. But we wrapped that up in about 2 days. So as far as sinkholes go, it was pretty quick.
Can they drive over that or mostly drive around it or?
We're keeping the road closed now. I've driven over it. I'm confident that it's solid, but like I said, we need some time for this to settle. We did not compact everything when we put it in because it wasn't safe to get the guys down there with the jumping jack. And frankly, we didn't have a whole pack that reached down 18 feet. So we'll just let time and we need some rain. We've had very little rain. We're still in a drought condition, so rain hopefully in the spring will help this thing settle. We'll have to take out a significant amount of blacktop and we'll repave it. We're satisfied it's stabilized.
And just for the minutes, I know that was an emergency declaration project, so we avoided bidding requirements. I think the board should just make a motion to ratify the fact that it was an emergency declaration project.
Another move to ratify the emergency declaration project.
Second.
Mr. Bachelor,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
And just for the board's edification, I'm still happy to have the declaration of emergency. But the project for outside vendors and supplies only cost just over $6,000. A lot of the cost was relative to the township forces doing a lot of that work. At the time this happened, there was no way for us to know if it was only gonna cost $6,000. The last sinkhole in that area was over $90,000. So, yeah, that was the Parkside sinkhole in 2013. So that there is an area of the township in Montrose on both sides of Lancaster Pike. Yes, the other side of Lancaster Pike is also part of Montrose, that is sinkhole prone.
That's all I have for time unless you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Moving on to the engineer's report.
Just one item, just an update. We've been experiencing some water main breaks on Elkins Avenue, Shillington Borough Water Authority. They had 5 breaks, from the 26th of January to the 28th. They were repaired. However, it did compromise, a section of Elkins Avenue. and it was not passable. However, they did restore it with coal patch for the moment. They did make the repairs. The borough of Shillington is looking at possibly replacing that water main. And I'll coordinate with Shillington and the Public Works Department, since there'll be some road work that they'll need to take care of, excavate. But for now, they wanted to make sure they got the road open and passable, since that's a heavily used road. We hope not to have any more leaks with this weather, and they had a problem when their pressure reducing valves failed. It actually compromised their system a bit, but I think everything's under control. I think to get some assistance from Western Berks Water Authority as well as RAWA in helping them correct this emergency. So I'll keep the township posted on their progress and any type of remediation or replacement of that water main.
Shillington Borough and Joe have been calling me, keeping me updated on what's going on, and we've all worked together very well with this. And so far, the coal patch held up to the plowing on Saturday, and that's always a big concern.
Yeah, we're a little worried about it because at this time of year, hot mix is not readily available. I believe Bob said down at Bechtelsville, which is about 40-minute drive. It is available, but concern is always getting the mix to be workable. However, the coal patch, cross our fingers, hopefully will last for the remaining duration of the winter until we get hot mixed and take care of restoring that road. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
The thing, Joe, I guess, would be coordinating that with the school district, since that's so heavily traveled by school buses.
Yes, I've been coordinating with the borough, and I think right now they're looking at trying to replace that section of water main, and that's something that we're gonna need to do, is coordinate with the school district. So that bus routes, that's a heavily used area. Once I have more information, hopefully I can report back, see which direction they're gonna go. They did have a committee meeting, and they are looking into having a contractor assist the borough in performing that work.
Thank you. Moving on to Kelsey, the solicitor.
Thank you. Under item A is the zoning ordinance text amendment. There was a hearing that was held at 6 p.m. tonight that you all are aware of, and most of you in the public were here for that as well. At this point, the board can consider enacting and making a motion to enact the zoning ordinance text amendment. And I know that there was discussion at the hearing about accepting from the proposed final amendment the definition of aggretainment to change the regulations to include up to 10 full-time employees instead of 4. So I consider that a de minimis change in the final proposed amendment. So that would be part of the motion if that's the way that the board wanted to propose the enactment. The other issue that Patty brought up to me in the break between the Saldo hearing and the regularly scheduled meeting was that there are some there's some issues with the sections and paragraphs and subsections and the way that they're numbered. It's totally de minimis because it's just kind of out of order in some sections. So I would ask, if we're gonna enact it tonight, we accept that as a change as well, so that I can go through and make sure it all lines up.
It's just like a formatting change, not a substantive change.
It's all just form, yep.
I move to adopt the, this is the zoning ordinance, correct? The zoning ordinance as, with the exception of 4 to 10 for full-time employees in aggregate and the formatting changes suggested.
I'll second
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
it. No.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Backdoor,
No.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Okay, and then item B on the agenda is the subdivision and land development ordinance text amendment. We also had a hearing with respect to that amendment tonight at 6:30 p.m., which the board is aware of. And I would just need a motion to enact that ordinance as well.
So moved.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Matt Dorf,
Yes.
Mr. Janelle,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Thank you. Item C on the agenda is with respect to walkways. There was an issue that arose during some of the recent snowfall between last meeting and this meeting regarding snow removal on certain walkways or pathways in the Flying Hills area. And, that was brought to our attention by a resident, and Commissioner Miller kind of asked Jean and I to look into the ordinance that we have regarding snow removal. We do have ordinance 78, which is fairly old, regarding snow removal, and it does require the clearing of sidewalks within 24 hours of a storm. However, the ordinance really only refers to traditional sidewalks. So the walking paths that you see and that were the concern in Flying Hills aren't traditional in any way. So in order to kind of deal with this, if it's something the board wants to look into, Jean and I discussed it, and there are 4 developments within the township that have these type of walkways. So if we're gonna deal with it in Flying Hills, the suggestion would be to look at Deerfield, Thomas Gardens, and Welsh Woods as well, so that we're not just singling out one place that has these type of non-traditional walkways. And at that point, once we get through looking at sort of their declarations and formational documents to determine what they say and what those walkways are identified as, then it would be possible to potentially enact an amendment to ordinance 78 that sort of brings those walkways into the fold. Exactly, and that's why we need to look into the formational documents and determine whether we can or can't do it.
Yeah, that document.
Ultimately, it's a common area that is, under most declarations, the actual entity like Flying Hills would be responsible for the clearing of the snow and clearing of other debris on those walkways. So it would.
That issue.
Correct. And they typically do, because it's a common element. So we would have to determine. So we want to look at all of that. I'm just bringing this to the board's attention because it was brought to our attention. There's still a lot of research and things we need to do into it, but it was brought up, so I just wanted to put that out there and let you guys know that that's something we're looking into.
So question on that, so should any HOA imposed in the township not include such language in their bylaws or whatever the document is? Is what I'm hearing that the township has no mechanism to compel that HOA to, like through ordinance, to clear their sidewalk?
Yeah, we really can't control private property, and that's privately owned property by the HOA, but for the most part, they all contain that language with respect to their common element, that they're responsible for it. It's just a matter of whether we can, it's enforceability is what it comes down to. I mean, enforcing these private entities to go out and clear snow on these walkways within 24 hours, you know, that's the end. Well, if we're, and that's the reason that Jean brought up, we need to look at all the developments that have these non-traditional walkways if we're looking at Flying Hills. We're looking into ones that have these types of non-traditional walkways.
It makes sense as like, perhaps an amendment to the Saldo yet again, for like, and not that we have any plans for residential subdivisions of any substance in the near future, but to like, is that where you would make such an amendment that, or like a rule that a new subdivision must clear their sidewalks for the interest of public safety? I'm just curious for my knowledge and for the public.
I've never seen it. But I'm not saying you couldn't.
Again, it comes down to enforceability. If any of the board took a look at on your shared drive, the drawing of the walkways in Flying Hills, we don't have, you need an army of code enforcement officers to enforce that. There are probably miles worth of walkways throughout Flying Hills. So the question becomes, which ones are you gonna enforce? And then So it really is a sticky question. If it's not a traditional sidewalk, which is in the right of way. And do we have any desire or enforceability to deal with walkways that are not in the code right of way, essentially on private property?
And I think in the past, what the township always did was if they got a complaint about these non-traditional walkways, they just let Flying Hills know that there are issues and that they might want to look at clearing these out for their residents. Instead of, having township officials go out there and clear them or cite Flying Hills or something like that.
And the question is, can we even cite? That's the question.
And from a legal perspective, I would like to look into some case law on that because I've never dealt with the issue of having a township clear non-traditional walkways. It's not something that the township would normally do.
Indeed not.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no harm in looking into it, right, at this point, just to see what we can and can't do.
Yeah, I can certainly look into it. It's just, again, it's non-traditional walkways. It would be a very non-traditional thing for a municipality to take on.
Understood.
Okay, that's all I have unless there are any other questions or.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the payments of bills. Some items from January 24th and the 31st and February the 7th and 14th of 25. Do I hear a motion to pay the bills?
I think a motion to pay the bill. Second.
Mr. Backdoor,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Rao.
Yes. Correspondence. We can read that, commissioners. Maybe vacancies and terms. Is that something you want to address, Jim?
Then just to let the board know that, we still have the vacancy on the planning commission. We do have a couple of alternates. One of the issues is we haven't received a response from the alternates and from the one individual that we were directed to. So I'm not sure what the will of the board is in this regard. In regard to the vacancy board, we have no idea who the board might want to appoint. That's where there's nothing there. We don't know what the board wants to do with that.
With regard to the planning commission, I mean, I can say if we can't get a hold of the alternates, I'm personally not comfortable appointing them to a full position on the planning commission unless, I mean, if we haven't even heard their expressed interest in a full position on the planning commission and they're not responding, I don't think it makes sense to proactively appoint one of them.
Gene, let me just recap. So we lost one of our full members and none of the alternates are responding. Did I hear that correctly?
One of the alternates is going to be moving out of the township, and the two other alternates, we have sent materials to and for the regular meetings and whatnot, and they haven't responded. We did get a corrected email from one of them. Mr. Herr and Mr. Wallenflegel. We have sent them materials and there has been no response. We did get a corrected email.
No, I understand. No, I suppose we
Personally, he told me that he was in touch, but if that's not the case, I know how to handle it.
In regard to, the board may recall back in the fall, I think it was at one of the November meetings, you spoke with Mr. Zelskowski.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody in the pipeline, and I'm sure everybody would be real happy with this, because he was on the planning commission before he was a commissioner. Sam Caldwell. No, that makes a lot of people happy.
Well, we also had Richard Cuthbert come forth in the summertime.
Now, For the board's edification, the planning commission is a 7-member board. We have 6 members. If those 2 gentlemen do respond as alternates, then they can sit. We're not in a crisis here for planning commission members. If the board wishes to let this ride for another month or 2, you can. There is only one potential plan occurring, actually the Roos plan that you had the waivers on this evening for a final approval, which is just a 2-lot subdivision. There's nothing else on the book before the planning commission in March. So this is definitely not a crisis if the board wants to think about it, do some work, or contact people. It was just our job to keep carrying this on your agenda so that you're aware of it.
No, doesn't sound to me like there's anything to do for now, but I think it makes sense to carry it forward. Yeah, anybody is interested. We have an opening on our planning commission, YouTube.
For the vacancy board, Gene, is the term up? Do we have to kind of re-elect someone? Is that where we're at?
It's a 1-year term every January. You have to appoint, and you may recall the discussion that occurred at last month's meeting. It's in the minutes that you approved this evening. Again, does not come into play until and unless there is a vacancy on the board of commissioners or the other boards that this would apply to. Does it apply to civil service, Kelsey?
It applies to auditor, controller, or tax collector.
Okay. So that is very limited, but this is, for instance, if one of the board members moved out of the township or left, for any other reason resigned, then, if there was a 2-2 vote among the remaining board members, the vacancy board person would be the chair of a special meeting to appoint into the remainder of the term of a commissioner. That's the function of this position. And it's just a 1-year position.
Just to clarify that, Gene, in the vacancy board hearing, the vacancy board member is not appointing individually, they're the tiebreaker, would be theoretically the
Yes.
tiebreaker, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Ruth O'Leary.
I'll nominate Tanya Leopins Campbell.
I'm not sure how long we waited for any seconds of either of them.
I would second, Mr. Greg Miller's nomination.
And I'll second.
How do I proceed? Chelsea?
Well, I think the first nomination on the table would go first. There's a second for both, so we can do Ruth O'Leary first and then, Tom Campbell. But.
Yes, Tanya Leopins Campbell.
So this is, with respect to Mrs. O'Leary, Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller,
No.
Mr. Backdoor.
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
No,
Ms. Rao.
Yes,
I guess we don't really need to do the second one, then.
just on that note, I wanted to remind the public that, what we just did was nominate a vacancy board member who was voted out of office in the last election that could legally appoint themselves to be the commissioner despite being voted out of office.
No, she can't appoint herself. You're wrong there. She can't appoint herself. She has to appoint somebody else.
She's just the chairperson of the vacancy board that.
Right.
That
If
would
she were
appoint-
nominated,
appoint
she
the
could
new-
vote for herself. Correct.
That would, I don't,
But
believe so.
last time we talked through this, there was nothing that.
she's basically a neutral third party that gets to be the chairperson of the vacancy board that selects the replacement commissioner. And if no commissioner gets selected by the vacancy board, it actually goes to the Court of Common Pleas and the judge selects one. So no, she would just be helping to select a new commissioner.
Correct, but if that person were to have been nominated by one of the four people with whom there is a tie, they would be a tie-breaking vote to vote for themselves.
It doesn't work like that. She wouldn't be able to elect herself.
Okay.
But, Bill Miller,
Yes, Cumru Township is part of the PSATC, remember, and I happen to be second VP in the central region. So I was at the last conference in January. Right now, we are pushing for local radar use, which will probably never be enacted, but we're still pushing for that. We're also for delivery of fire and EMS services, we're promoting that. And we have a mandate relief for public noticing. Since the newspapers are getting fewer and fewer readers, we still have to advertise to the newspaper. So we're looking at better ways to do the advertising. And we're talking to the senators and representatives of the state of Pennsylvania. And we're also looking at moderation of municipal revenue tools. Plus, I forwarded an email from the association where they have a survey. So each one of you, if you made a username and password, you can go on the website and do the survey. Any questions for the PSATC? I'm glad to ask them. If I don't know the answer, I can find them out for you. Things are going. Yeah, no problem. Actually, Ruth got me started in this, and then one of the past presidents, John Yankowski, got me started in this. It's a great way to learn because you have commissioners from all over the state, and you listen to some of the things that they came up with, how they handle them. So to me, it's very educational. I've learned a lot. That's all I have, Alicia.
thank you, Bill. Next up is executive session.
Before we go into that, I have the first class township code up and I wanted to be clear that first class township code section vacancies in office says that if the board of commissioners of any township shall refuse, fail, or neglect, or be unable to, for any reason whatsoever, to fill a vacancy within 30 days after the vacancy occurs, then the vacancy board shall fill the vacancy within 15 additional days by appointing a registered elector of the township or ward in which the vacancy occurs. The vacancy board shall consist of the board of commissioners and one registered elector of the township who shall be appointed by the board of commissioners at the board's first meeting each calendar year or as soon thereafter as practical. At no point in this section, and I have searched the entire document. There's 4 occurrences. I don't see anything about restriction of a vacancy board appointee being unable to appoint themselves as a tie-breaking vote. Just
And I can get you that language.
okay.
And with that, we'll go to the executive session.
For the minutes, we did have an executive session to discuss a collective bargaining issue, a matter of litigation, and a personnel issue, but there is no action to be taken on any of those issues at this time.
Can I make them?
Oh, do I have to go?
Yeah, oh, yeah, you have to go over it.
Reminder, zoning hearing board, 128 at 6 P.M. Cancel. Application number 827, continuing, seeking special exception to add a modular home on the property known as 812 Cameron Street. The Economic Development Steering Committee on 123 at 6 P.M. You can read through the Board of Commissioners meetings. Our next regular meeting is February the 18th.
That's the end of it.
Oh, that is probably.
Stop me before.
Reminders, zoning hearing board, 225 at 6 P.M. Okay, so that's canceled, the same thing. Board of Commissioners meeting for March and April. So the regular meeting is April the 18th at 7 P.M. and 4/15 at 7 P.M. And the fifth Tuesday meetings, 4/29 at 7 P.M. Planning Commission, March 3rd at 6 P.M. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'm the one who's in the room.